I'm going to tell you something. I pretty much can tell you that every person in their life has had $1 million idea. No doubt. No doubt. It's just, you're going to take action. That's the big difference. Do you want to do something about it? The ideas are there. It's just, then you got to take your next step. So the goal of the first prototype is to bring your idea into the world. You want to see that it can be made. You want to see that it can be done. And then you want to educate yourself on the strengths and the weaknesses of your prototype. And you do that by comparing it to what else is available in the marketplace and why it's better. That added design element that don't compromise the fit. The first prototype of Spanx was actually a product that already existed, and I just took a new angle on it. I mean, I literally took a product that existed and made a modification to it. I cut the feet out of pantyhose. It's important to remember that when you're creating your first prototype, it can often be a combination of aspects of things you really like. Like, for example, Steve Jobs, he didn't invent the camera, he didn't invent the phone, he didn't invent email. He looked at it and said, I'm going to put all this together in one device. So when I was prototyping, I literally went and found elements of other people's products that I liked. I like this waistband, and here's the reason why. I like this fabric, and here's the reason why. I like this. And then I thought, okay, how do I make the leg band on the bottom? I didn't know how to do that. I actually went to fabric stores and arts and crafts stores and got elastic, tried to staple it at the bottom. I tried to paper clip it to the bottom. I mean, I was doing such crude, homemade examples, but that's where it all starts. When you're testing your first couple of prototypes or your beginning business, I say, don't underestimate your own, would I buy this? Is this my first choice? When I started Spanx, I had the product wear tested on myself, 2 friends, and my mom. When I give people prototypes, I always want them to tell me what's wrong with it. I'm so focused on what don't you like about it and how can it be improved. For example, I said to them, I want you to go home. I don't want you to just put it on your body. I want you to wear it for a few days, not just instantly. Tell me how it's performing over the course of several days. Does it start to get hot? Do you want to get out of it? What's happening? Give me that feedback. I mean, negative feedback's super important, and you just need to know what to do with it. It's either a gift and you make a change and something you didn't think about, or it's something that you don't agree with and you move on and continue on your path. You're not going to please everybody, and a lot of people are going to not understand what you're doing or tell you that it's not a good idea. But keep checking in with yourself. Is it your first choice? Does it solve a really important need? Would you want to have this business option over something else in the market? And chances are, if you do, then a lot of other people do too. There's going to be aspects of your product that maybe aren't as good as something else that's out there. Study that just as much as you study the good parts of your product, and figure out a way to potentially market your product so that that doesn't become a weakness, it becomes a strength. When you're trying to take your weaknesses from your product and turn them into strengths, it's just like, if you're wondering how to do that, look at how you move through life. We all have weaknesses. How are we taking our own weaknesses and making them our greatest strengths? How are we looking at them differently? And so, for example, if you come up with a product and it's a prototype, and the only way that it works is the fabric has to be really thick. It needs more rigidity for this whole concept to work. And then you think to yourself, this could be an objection from consumers. They might say, but it's too thick. Hedge that up front and say, the fabric has been selected that it's thick for these following 3 benefits. 1, it might perform better on body and give a better silhouette. It might, XYZ. So oftentimes I will take something and I because I'm so close to the strengths and weaknesses, I'm almost hearing everybody's objections that I'm anticipating. I'm very rarely caught off guard by an objection I get from an idea I have or a product that I create, because I've already obsessed it better than anybody else. So don't be afraid of the objections. Don't say, I can't make this because there's 5 objections to this. Say, I'm going to be ready, I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to show them the other side of this objection and what the benefit is and what the positive is. And it's just a preparation through the process. So when you're making your prototype, one thing to keep in mind is whatever the cost of your prototype is, you should be able to sell it in the marketplace for at least 5 times the manufacturing cost. So if your manufacturer says you're starting to prototype with them and they say it's going to be about $10 a piece, all right, well, I need to multiply that by 5, so my retail price to the consumer should be about $50. If that's not a starting point for you, it may not be a viable business, because you've got to have a product that also bears a price that the market will pay for it. And you'll be the best judge of that based on the competition. What are the other solutions available? If you truly are the only solution on the planet in it, you have more price flexibility of what you can charge a consumer. For me, there wasn't footless pantyhose. That didn't exist, but hosiery did exist. And I knew what the other prices of hosiery type garments were, so that gave me a framework. I still ended up being one of the most expensive items in that category. Hosiery was anywhere from $3 a pair to, on the very highest end, $15 to $19. And Spanx was priced at $20 a pair. But I had the framework, and I knew what I was doing with the pricing in that regard. Another aspect to make a really good prototype or service for your business and creating a business in the world is to obsess the customer, to think about the customer at every turn. How is the customer feeling? How is the customer putting it on? How is the customer finding our business? How is the customer comparing this to others? Every aspect of it, from the prototype stage all the way through the packaging. Is the packaging easy to get into or not easy to get into? Does it have a pleasant feel in the hand, or does it not have a pleasant feel in the hand? Is it going to come in, is it easy to ship or not? I mean, all of these aspects, I am thinking about the consumer. It's very easy to get caught up in newness for the sake of newness. So let me give you a perfect example. My dishwasher. It has an alarm on it. I do not need an alarm on my dishwasher. I do not want an alarm on my dishwasher. I feel like the industry just started saying, oh, well, here's a new feature we can differentiate ourselves from the others. But like, in the end of the day, the consumer I don't need an alarm that tells me the minute my dishes are done. I mean, am I going to go running through the house? And no one knows how to turn the alarm off the dishwasher. So this thing just beep, 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 beep. I'm laying in bed. I'm like, no, it's the dishwasher alarm. Like, that's innovation for the sake of innovation. They're not thinking of the customer. I've made a lot of decisions not to iterate and create something to chase the masses. Like, I've had situations where the sales team will come back at Spanx and say, Sarah, everybody's talking about this new bonding and that it looks more modern and it's cooler from a garment standpoint. And I say it's not as good on body. It doesn't perform as good on body as the way that we stitch ourselves and the way that we have been doing. And I wouldn't chase that technology, even though we might not look as current. I know on body how it's going to feel on the customer. That is the compass you have to keep, and you have to be brave enough to do it. And you don't always chase innovation for the sake of innovation, and you just obsess the customer. How do you know if your idea is working, and how much time should you give it? How much patience should you have for it? It's so personal, and it's also very much about checking in with that gut and that intuition. But I can tell you that from the idea that I had to when it was in the marketplace was 2 years. I worked on it at night and on the weekends for 2 years before I actually had an actual prototype in my hands and was ready to sell it out in the world. For me, I was able to identify that it was working because almost instantaneously it was selling out, and women were responding to it in a very positive way. That's not always the case with ideas. I've had things that I've launched out into the world that it wasn't their right time. And I've had to iterate it and iterate it. And then suddenly, boom, 3 years later, it's the right time, the right product, the market's ready for it. So it's just it's an art, not a science. So there comes a moment where you have to let your baby go off into the world, and you have to say, I'm no longer iterating and I'm no longer trying to perfect this prototype. It is ready. And I am a believer that you wait until that moment, especially in the beginning, to launch it. It's far more important to try to get it right up front than to iterate on the customer, especially when it's your first shot out of the gate. And I would say that iteration for prototyping can range. I mean, some things can happen pretty quickly, and then some things take many, many years, really. So how do you know your prototype is done and ready to be out in the world? It solves the problem, it gives you the results that you're looking for, and it's the best option out there. Sometimes when you're iterating a prototype, you get to a point where you have to pivot. You have to either pivot or abandon. When do you pivot and turn and potentially abandon a idea is when it's not solving the problem, it's not the best option out there, or it's not giving you the results that you want. And it's really that simple. It's like, why am I doing this? How am I different? And believing in that for yourself. Seeing it on other customers, seeing their reactions, seeing the results. And an example that I went through on pivoting was I had been iterating on an arm shaper. And it was called Arm Believable, is what we named it. And it was meant to be hidden under your clothes, and it scooped below your bra, and you put it on over your head, and it kind of toned and tightened your arms under your sleeve, your shirts and your outfits. And it just wasn't working for us. The shaping of the arm was uncomfortable. We didn't feel like it was the right thing to be putting pressure on this part of your body. And we kept trying to find the balance between results and comfort, and we just felt like we couldn't get there. And so that was a perfect moment in time where we were potentially going to abandon it. And instead, we made a pivot, and we just pivoted from a use standpoint. And we said, you know what, instead of trying to make it about shaping and toning the arms, what if it's just arm fashion? What if we just decide that this is a product that you can wear because you want to be able to wear your sleeveless tops and dresses year-round? It will extend your wardrobe. Just like there's tights on your legs that allow you to wear skirts and dresses throughout all of fall and winter, why not for your arms? And so we pivoted the actual end use and the need and how we felt the customer could use this. And the product took off and became a huge success and a brand new invention called arm tights. I believe prototyping and iteration is a part of any business, whether you're creating an actual physical product and inventing something or not, because you've got to constantly be iterating how you're servicing the customer. How are you speaking to the customer? Entrepreneurs usually solve a problem or make something better. And how you're making something better today, in this moment in time, in this year, might be very different than the best way to do that in 3 years from now. And if you're not a business that's iterating and prototyping how to do that with your culture, with your services, with your products, whatever it may be, you'll wake up and you'll find that you're no longer differentiated in the way that you were when you started.